Hi there. This is Ryan Chatterson, and during this short segment I'm just going to explain a little bit about our vertical outlet manifold and let you see it in action. Okay, so we learned how to build this vertical outlet manifold in class already. We gave you the specifications on how to size the number of holes and the diameter of holes in accordance to the flow rate that you have coming into the culture tank. So again, very easy. We have a straight down piece of PVC pipe with a cap on the bottom, and that cap sits on the bottom of the culture tank and supports this pipe. Comes up, we come into a reduction T here that actually reduces and increases a small amount of pressure and into the sight tube, the manometer here, and that allows us to get that visual indication of the water flow rate coming through this pipe. Above this T we have a union, okay, and that union allows us to turn this back and forth, allowing us to turn it into the wall if we want to dampen the velocity, or turn it out away from the wall to, say, a maximum of 1/6 the circumference of this tank for the maximum velocity achieved in the vessel. So we have a union here. This also allows us to take this off and clean this if we ever need to. Now above the union we come over and we have a ball valve. Now this ball valve allows us to increase and decrease the turnover and the velocity depending on the size of our fish culture, our fish culture size. So as the fish grow, we can increase velocity and turnover by opening up the valve more. So we want to size all these tanks off of the maximum velocity we're ever going to need in them. So at harvest time when the fish are the biggest. And you're always going to have that potential. But in the beginning you will have the tank valved down because the smaller fish don't need that much turnover. So I've had several questions about how do we increase the velocity in a tank as fish grow. Well, we do it with the ball valve right here. As they grow, we can increase the velocity, increase the turnover, because our pump already has the power to do that because we sized it correctly in the beginning. So we have a ball valve back here, and then it goes right down into our plumbing schematic where it comes from our pump over to this fish tank. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and let you see the water flow, just visually what it looks like. And also keep an eye on the clear manometer here. As we get some pressure in the tube, you're going to see it fill up. Okay, so we've got good water flowing now. Now as this fills up, of course, you won't see these holes. So I always install this T and this sight tube to be in the same direction as the holes that you drill, so that while this is full, you know which direction you're pointing your flow. That's very important. So as fish are smaller, we can turn this to the wall, and you get a very gentle turnover, a real slow flow through this tank. Same amount of water being turned over, so the same amount of ammonia being taken care of and moved to the biofilter, but you don't have the rotational velocity. And as they get bigger, you can actually turn this and just keep moving it out until you reach the maximum velocity, which is 1/6 the circumference of the tank, until you reach that point, and you really have this tank turning. So that is why we have the union here, and again, so that we can clean this if we ever need to. As you can see, I've never cleaned this in 3 years. It's a little dirty. That's just bacteria and biofilm, that passive nitrification we talk about. That's what's on the side walls of the tanks here, and it's living everywhere. So something else I didn't talk about during the session inside is that you can see the manometer here. We've got a water height right here. And let's think of an example of my water pump. Let's say it does 100 gallons per minute, and we have 4 culture tanks, meaning we'd have 25 gallons per minute coming in here right now. Well, we'd go ahead and make a mark on this sight tube, and it tells us that's 25 gallons per minute. Now we go to the other side of the fish building and turn off the flow to the other 2 tanks. Well, this means it's going to have 50 gallons per minute coming through here, and you're going to see this mark come up here. You can make a mark there. Then I would open all 4 valves and turn your water pump halfway down. Go ahead and dial that halfway down, and you'll see the water level come down. Well, that'll be 12.5 gallons, okay? We go ahead and make a mark there. Then you can go back between those marks and make a metered scale of how many gallons per minute you have at each mark. And you have a calibrated flow meter that you created, you know, in just a few minutes out of some clear PVC pipe. So that can save you a lot of money. I'll go ahead and turn this off now just so it gets a little quieter. And I know you can't see the rotational velocity in this tank right now, but it is cooking. I mean, it is really strong current rotating. I'm going to step out of the frame for just a moment and bring our bottom plate into play. So we learned how to make this. This is our bottom drain with the drain plate here that goes over it, and the pipe that actually comes up out of the top of the tank and holds our net for us. So we're going to insert this right into the bulkhead in the center of the tank. Okay? And now as I pan down, you'll be able to actually see this. Okay, you see it installed right there in the bottom of the tank. That's our fish guard and our bottom drain plate installed. And you see where the holes are at the top of your screen? Well, those are actually just above the water level. And if anything clogs up those drain holes, then we can go ahead and pull this out of the tank and unclog it and reinsert it back into the tank. So we don't glue that in the bulkhead fitting in the bottom just for that purpose, so that we can remove it if we ever need to. But there it is installed. That's your culture tank, and you saw the flow manifold in works there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and switch over to get set up on one of our other fish culture tanks that has fish in it, and let you see how this works with a tank full of fish and what those water velocities do for the water quality within that tank. Okay, now please don't get bothered by the air blower here. I'm trying to stay quiet so these fish actually act normal. I went ahead and set the camera up on the fish tank so that we can see how they act in this water column. You can see we've got the aeration in the center of the tank, and we have our inlet manifold on the right hand side of the tank there delivering the water. Okay, and you can see the fish swimming around below the surface. I had to do this when the water was a little bit, the light was a little bit lower because there was a bad glare coming in from the opening where we have some sunlight coming into the tanks. So you can see the fish swimming around happily. You can actually look at the bubbles on the surface and see the rotation in the tank there. And they're all sitting right below the tank, and I'm kind of hiding because as soon as they see me, fish do recognize faces, and they recognize me as a feed source. So as soon as I walk around here and they see me, they're going to start going nuts. And I'm actually going to feed them some food so that you can see what we're talking about here. Now, something to keep in mind, we talk about fish densities and how many fish we want to keep in a tank. Well, right now this fish tank we're about to observe is about a 1/4 pound per gallon is how many fish we have in here. Just a little bit less. It's not stocked very densely right now. We've sold some fish and we just don't have a high density in there. Now it's still, we say not high density compared to some of this pure oxygen numbers, but they're actually, when I feed here, you get an idea of what that looks like. And just think, if this is about a 1/4 pound a gallon, right around there, think what 4 times this, the same volume water would look like. And that's what's capable with pure oxygen. So I'm going to go ahead and feed these guys right now. And you'll notice when they see me, I'm maneuvering between equipment. Okay, they're about to see me here. Oh, they see me. All right, now watch. Okay, so as you can see, it's a fairly large mass of fish, and that might not have done it justice, but there's a lot of fish in that tank. So don't think you have to go to an extreme density to actually raise a lot of fish in a tank. Also, my fish are a lot prettier than this lighting is making them look. But it's almost dark, so they look like they're almost all white. But they're not. They're a lot better looking than that. So that's not doing them justice. Just had to throw that in there. Now with a similar configuration, but the flow dampened a bit because of the size of the fish, here we have some juvenile koi. And you can see the numbers, they're moving quite fast, full of energy. As I pull back, you get an idea of the number in there. Got over 1,000 easy, you know, a few thousand in there, probably 2,500. Large amount of fish. In this tank specifically, in the center there, we actually have a sensor overflow. So because these fish are so tiny, they might actually go through that slot that we cut in the bottom of that pipe with the drain cover. Instead, we just put a standpipe in that bulkhead hole. And that standpipe has a screen over it at the top there so that the fish can't get sucked through. So the water still moves in a circle, comes to the center of the tank with the waste, and that air plume brings the waste up, and a lot of it goes right out of the outlet tube through the center. So not quite as efficient. This still works great, and this is a fairly high density for aeration. So I just wanted to give you an idea of that. And that's it for this session. Again, if you have any questions at all, please email me, ryan@collegeofaquaponics.com, and I will be sure to cover those questions in our weekly question and answer session and make sure you get all the information that you need. Thank you very much.